Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to receive future updates. Welcome to another episode of Bryno's Homebrews here on Bryno's World. Today it's another 3-part series here, where today, as you can see, I'm making another 1-gallon batch here with the sous vide machine. Heating the grains up right now. Why right now, I'll tell you in a bit. But the style of beer I'm planning on making is one that's a little unusual. And honestly, it's one that, well, didn't really catch on, but it's one I want to try and make. Something that's been itching in my mind, like a splinter in my mind, driving me mad, and I just want to try for myself just to see if I can. What style is that? Well, it's a style that several craft breweries tried to launch maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but didn't have a whole lot of success in it. It was called, get this, a Brut IPA. Now, what the hell is that? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but it was supposed to be like a beer that was very, very dry, exceptionally dry. In fact, I actually reviewed a Brut IPA a few years ago, but I never posted it. If I can find that review somewhere within my archives, I'll see if I can get it to you. But it's supposed to be a very, very dry beer with all the sugars fermented into alcohol. Cranks against something very, very dry, which is unique and strange for a beer. But what this was weird, I can't really think of a good way to describe this, so I'm just going to say my complaint about that style right away. It advertised itself as an IPA, but it didn't taste bitter at all. Well, at least the IPA that I tried didn't. That's what gave the beer such a low score when I reviewed it, if I can find it for you. I can't remember which one it was. I don't know if it was Sierra Nevada, or I think it was maybe Lagunitas or what. I don't remember, but either way, it was not bitter at all, and it called itself a Brut IPA, which is why initially I didn't like it. I reviewed it very low for an IPA, but the more I look back on it, the more I thought it was kind of interesting. I thought it was good, decent. It tasted almost champagne-like. I just think that they tried to call it an IPA just to sell it and make some numbers, but it's just money over sense in my opinion. But anyway, that's all aside, so that's sort of what you know from it. But anyway, I'm going to try and make one myself. And what kind of grains have I got here in this 2-gallon pot here? Well, I've got 2 pounds of 2-row malt and half a pound of caramel 20. So it's going to be a little colory, but not too colory. And obviously, since I hope to have it all completely fermented out, I don't expect any caramelly or sweet notes at all. Now the question is, how am I going to get this beer to ferment completely bone dry? I'm going to accomplish that by adding some of this stuff here. This is Amylase Enzyme. This is specifically the enzyme that's used to break down the starches in the malt into sugars, which are fermentable and can be converted to alcohol. Usually, I think this stuff is added, from what I've read, by people that want to do it with like big IPAs or whatever, that really want to get as much out of it as possible, get as much sugar and get as high alcohol as possible. So I'm going to add a little bit of this to that to try to accomplish that. And actually right now, while the water's heating up, is what some say is the best time. Now the instructions say add half a teaspoon per 5 gallons. Well, this is going to be 1 gallon, so I reckon 1/8 of a teaspoon ought to be just enough for a 1-gallon batch. So here we go. Boom, 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 boom. So before I let this mash here go on for however long it's going to be, like I think it's going to be 90 minutes plus maybe a 30-minute mash out at 170. Before I leave that, I want to address a quick little comment from the last time I did a all-grain brew on this channel. One commenter, I don't remember exactly who, suggested I heat the water first to the strike water temperature and then dump my grains in here. Technically, that's the way you're supposed to do it with all grain brewing. I am not doing that, however, mainly for 2 reasons. One, because, well, it's hard to guess what size of a pot. I mean, as you can see or may not see, I tried it with a 3-gallon pot first, but I don't have enough water or enough grains to do that, so I'm topping up my 2-gallon pot here So in order for the sous vide machine to actually get to that water level, I need to have the grains in there. Second of all, and please correct me if I'm wrong about this, my intuition is that it's not totally necessary to heat it up to the right strike water temperature for this, at least not with a precision heating device like the sous vide machine. With when you're heating stuff like on a stove or whatever, yeah, there's fluctuations in temperature. It's kind of hit and miss, not very precise. This is very precise. This will keep it at 150 degrees perfectly. And I figure once I'm there, I'm there. I mean, if there's the only danger I could think of would be it might be in that danger zone of like between 40 and 140 where bacteria and such might get involved in, but it's going to go right onto the burner for the boil, and that'll annihilate those bacteria, so you're going to be done with that anyway. But yeah, you are supposed to do that with larger stuff, but I don't feel it's completely necessary here. Plus, it's another step I don't need to do. Did that make sense? Anyway, what will make sense is me cutting over to the mashing of the grains. So let's get to the time lapse. Okay, it's been 90 minutes and the mash is completed, and in a last minute change, I'm not going to do a mash out, I'm kind of worried, maybe I'm irrational, leave a comment if I am, that kicking it up to 170 might create some unfermentable sugars, and I don't want that at all with this Brut IPA potentially, so let's just kill the sous vide machine, get it out, erase it back up, get the great guard barrier thing out of the way. So here we go. So now, let's go to the other side of the kitchen and boil the crap out of this. Just turn the stove on with this pot of wort here. Once it gets to a boil, I'm going to get started with adding the hops. But because this is going to be a Brut IPA, and Brut IPAs are not, from what I remember, like I said, are not supposed to be bitter at all. Very, very little bitterness maybe. So I'm using a hop with a very low alpha acid content. This is Saz, 2.4% alpha acid. And the boil is not going to be for very long at all. I'm thinking just 20 minutes. I put half these hops into 20 minutes and the other half at flame out. Get a very teensy bit of flavor and some aroma, but very little, if any, bitterness to speak of. And yes, I know 1 ounce is a lot for a 1 gallon batch, but I don't like being wasteful. But that's just me. So I'll wait till this pot gets to a boil, which shouldn't take long as it was at 153 degrees not too long ago. Once we start boiling, then we'll start boiling. That made a lot of sense, didn't it? Wonderful, great thinking, Bryno. Okay, it's been 20 minutes. The wort is now in a, not really an ice bath, but just water and cold water in the sink. It's the best I can do with what I have. I didn't think to get an extra thing of ice. Stupid of me. It was half an ounce of Saz went in at 20 minutes, and the other half at flame out. 15 minutes I put some Irish moss in to clarify it, but I don't know if I really need it. So once it gets to room temperature, we'll do some measurements. Okay, the wort has chilled to my satisfaction. Now let's get some stuff into the beaker and get some readings. And see what we are dealing with here. You know, I think, and there's no bubbles in there either, which is fantastic. Maybe that's a thing with these all grain beers, I don't know. But anyway, first let's get some gravity chickens. 62 gravity points is what I was shooting for. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it got that high. I think it's just 50. It's 1.050 on the gravity-o-meter. Now that the gravity's done, let's get the temperature, which is important as well for these readings. 75.9 degrees Fahrenheit. or 24.4 degrees Celsius. But that means we adjust the gravity based on its temperature to 1.052, 52 gravity points. Which means if all the sugars in that beer ferment into alcohol, and in this case that's what we want, the ABV should be 6.8%. So if this amylase enzyme has done its job, that's what kind of beer we'll be looking at. So now let's try our best to run this wort through that sieve into this brand new 1 gallon or 2 gallon fermenting bucket. So there's our wort, and now in here I've been proofing some yeast. This is Safe Ale 05. People who suggest making beers like this, the Brut IPA, suggest using a very clean filtering, or not clean filtering, but a very clean, crisp yeast, an American ale yeast, and it doesn't get any more clean and American than a Safe Ale 05. So pop some more of these last bubbles, and now let's inoculate this bad boy. Oi, 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 oi. There we go. So now let's put the top on this. And finally put on the airlock. Give it a little swirl to get the yeast and such mixed in with everything. And there we go. So we'll check back on this in about 2 weeks and see where we're at. Hopefully everything will ferment it out by then, and all we just need to do is let it sit in the secondary. But stranger things have happened. So with that being said, that'll do it for another episode of Bryno's Homebrews here on Bryno's World. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you got any beer ideas that I could make on this show, or anything else I could cook food-wise on this show, leave a comment down below. Otherwise, don't forget to like this video, share with your friends, subscribe if you have not done so already. Click the bell icon wherever it is on your device to be notified first of future videos, and make sure to click the all videos option. Once again, thanks for watching, and have yourself a great one.